I'm very pleased to have David Schraub here as our next speaker. David is the founder and CEO of David Schraub Actuarial Consultancy, but has spent 25 years of actuarial experience, but a decade with the Society of Actuaries, working on anti-discrimination assessments and social biases, as well as a bunch of industry experience. So I'm going to not take up any more of his time.
Thank you. I'm really passionate about that. I mean, that's really something that's really important to me, because we want to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing for the society. There are so many dystopian future that we can think that if we don't do it right, it's so bad. So I'm gonna quickly go over that. I do have some slides, but I'm gonna talk a little bit out of the slide a little bit, because some of it has been already covered, and I would like to a little bit engage. And one thing that's cool is that I'm a solo consultant. So I can say things without angering any stakeholders, any things. So I have a little bit of the tendency to be a little bit caricatural and blunt and so on, just to get my point across. So I'm not speaking about any clients in specific. I'm not speaking about any practices in specific, but I would like to try to illustrate what's going on in practice. Who I am, Gilles already covered that. The accent is French, which is why Malika was referring to the French regulation. I have a few pulling questions, but I'm gonna not do it as pull, but more as a joke. This is statistically correct. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500, how many CEO are white male individual? That's the overall majority. So is that a fair representation? Again, what is fair? What is this? Statistically, yes. Is that the aspirational image that we want to give to the society? Clearly not. But if you have only one picture if you're allowed to do only one picture, you probably should do that. So that's a tricky one. A similar one is this one. Is that a fair representation of a prisoner? This one is even more tricky, is because statistically in the US there are more white people than black people in jail. However, the political discourse, the discourse in social media, in media in general, is more about black people. So again, the machine learning, your AI tool will be trained on that wealth of information, which is a little bit underlyingly biased, and you will get that. And that's not appropriate. So that's not what we want as a society. Okay, as everyone, I have a few definition of what is bias, what is not bias, what is this. So I will again go a little bit fast here. Where's my cheat sheet? Anyway, so that is the Oxford definition. That is really the gut feeling of people. It's biased against me. It's unfair. It's that type of things. So prejudice against one person or a group. So that's kind of what is bias. Unfair Trade Practice Act, and so in my cheat sheet I had the Unfair Settlement Practice Act and other regulation. But it's basically saying, don't be biased unless you have to. Unless it's what is actually relevant. Is that so? That's what Malika was saying. Age I mean, of course, age is a critical part. I mean, especially, I'm a life insurance in background. I mean, the mortality of a 40-year-old is way different than the mortality of a 97-year-old. So age is critical, and gender is similarly critical. And so you have to use age and gender, but in Europe you don't. You cannot do gender. Or at least not in front of the customer, but you can do it in on the back end when you're showing aggregate rate to your group or to your target audience. The aggregate rate are based on your target market and your assumed target market composition, and there you have the male and female rating. So what it is interesting. Again, if you're asking an actuary what is bias, I mean that it's bias because I didn't hit the bullseyes in my model, and so my model is not correct. So let's go. And bias. I mean, if you get a shrink, if you get a more a behavioral economic, like my friend Solomon here, you will get confirmation bias, anchoring bias. So that type of bias as part of your definition. Social bias is more stereotype and prejudice preference toward a certain group. So here we're speaking about the group view. Statistical bias is my bullseyes comment. Algorithm bias is based on the algorithm and unfair outcome to data due to biased data and design choices. So the definitions are messy, and most people don't want to define anything because they know that the legal system will define things. I mean, people are going to get sued. Of course, people are going to get sued. I mean, an insurance company will get sued and will have to defend themselves. And based on that, on those type of lawsuits, the definitions will emerge. So that's really interesting and really important. Okay, U.S. regulation. I'm going to. We already had the compare and contrast here. So the NAIC model bulletin, it's 4 or 5 pages, and it says, do the right thing, please, and because that's important. Why did they say that? Is because that's what they were able to agree upon. So that's and that's probably what the right thing to do. Colorado, they decided to spell out exactly what they wanted to do, what the right thing is. And in their mind, they wanted to do a bright line. P-value and 5%, and if you're below that, you're good, and if you're above that, let's talk. And there were a lot of back and forth, and statisticians, as you mentioned, said like, you should probably not do that because it depends. And Faye, in your document with the Society of Actuaries, you said there's 23 different metrics to define bias, and you cannot just do one. And all the practitioners say like, it's model dependent. It's business case dependent. So you're taking the p-value or the z-test or anything that Giles showed to say it really depends. Please do the right thing. So in fact, do the right thing is pretty good. And okay, let's try to make sure. So this one is interesting as well. New York, they are saying, do the right thing, but in a way very similar to what Malika showed. Of do the right thing. If it doesn't work, explain why you have to do that. And if you really have to do that, can you find something else that that will be less consequential? And okay, I'm going to show my actuarial trait here. I don't remember exactly the date, but at one point, the life insurance industry realized that people that are coming from this Eastern European country and this sub-region of that country were way more prone to disability, and so they were pricing it because that is really a pricing data. This is really important. That changed the outcome, and it was not fair for people who didn't have that problem to pay for that. And then it was only like 20, 30 years later then they realized that's why, because there was some pollution in something, and that area was a little bit more polluted, and that's why the people had a certain above average mortality. But the legal framework on the life insurance side is you have to show correlation. You don't have to prove causation, because most of the time you can't. So it's back into the definition of Unfair Trade Practice Act and so on, is saying do the right thing, don't use any prohibited variable unless you have to. Unless you have to, that was the link, unless you can prove actually that this is an important variable. So most of the states used that and passed either a law or not even passed a law and basing passed a circular letter or even not, because they feel like the law on the book are good enough, and they basically said, please do the right thing. We're going to catch you in the market conduct exams. And every 3 years, 3 years, there are market conduct exams, and where the insurance commissioner send a few people, either directly staff or paid in the way was described, and say like, open the book, show me that you're not discriminating, show me which metrics are you using, why not, and so on, and show that you're doing the right thing. Another interesting part is we talked about race all the time. Why? Because we can. Sexual orientation is a slippery slope, and most people don't want to talk about it. But country of origin is very difficult to do. And race, I'm going to talk about how do you impute race. Basically, you're trying to say you are inputting race through the BSFG system, and then you're checking if that has an impact or not. And as Giles mentioned, it is fraud with a lot of issues, that process. But it's better than nothing. And so that's good. So that's really important. And by the way, as we mentioned, race is a taboo subject in France. There is only one race, and you cannot do anything with race. And the last time it was race was a factor was during World War II, and it didn't end well. So that is completely taboo. So it's really also jurisdiction dependent. I'm working with some Canadian companies as well, and even the testing is a little bit difficult to do, because you cannot create a variable that could be charged. So it's very jurisdiction dependent. How am I doing on time? Good. Okay. So I don't want to compete with Giles, so it's my only equation. But all I'm saying is that Rodrigo Perez, who lives in Little Mexico in Chicago, let's say, is likely to be Hispanic. And John Smith, who lives in this nice white neighborhood, is likely to be white. So that's how they did That's how the Bayesian improved first name, surname geocoding. First name, last name, some kind of geography, and whoop, we assign a race in a probability fashion. And too bad if you are a female that took the last name of your husband, because you're going to get misclassified. And too bad if you are living in a white neighborhood, and if you're a black person. My friend Dorothy Andrew use her own case and saying like, according to the test, I am 75% white, and she is completely black. So it doesn't work, but it's better than nothing. And back also to all the metrics that Faye was mentioning. It is not an individual metric, but it's statistically in a group, it's kind of okay. And it's also based on some databases where you have the race. So if in the mortgage or in the census data, let's say in the mortgage data, when you're applying for a mortgage, you said that I am white and I am this and that. And then we say, okay, some people whose name is David and whose last name is Schraub is likely to be white, and then they use that in that mathematical calculation. Yeah, but if I'm too poor to have a house, to apply for a mortgage, so those databases are really slanted, really biased. Oh, I use a protective word. So, also in Wisconsin, because of historical reason, there are a lot of Hmong people from that ethnic group that were historically, because of the Vietnam War and this and that. Do you really think that this is captured correctly? Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned that. If you have a first name or if you have only an initial, it's bad. In doubt, you will be white. So that's majority bias. If you are a small group, like Native American doesn't exist anymore because it's too small statistically. So there is no Native American anymore in the entire world. But it's better than nothing. Okay. So now I'm going to play a little bit, and I'm going to try to do some more audience interaction and so on. So if so that was okay. So that's similar to what others have been saying, that if the group A is paying more than the group B, everything is being equal. Is it because it's the same risk, or because some are less or more risky than others? So that's kind of back to what has been discussed. What variable are you looking to optimize and to compare to see if there is a problem or not? Or if it's the same expected profit, you feel you were mentioning the DC study. The black people are paying more than the white people. Oh, but wait a minute, the expected profit for the black people are lower than the white people. So are we good? Are we not good? Also, same variability. If the white people are really the claims are really the same year after year compared to another group, the black people, if I continue that, are variable, then if you have some more variability, then legally you have to put some capital, and then there is a cost of capital attached to it. It starts to be messy. Which metric you're talking here? The group A is heterogeneous or not? That's a conversation I had with a friend of mine. So think about a group that is really heterogeneous. And I'm going to caricature. You have a lot of people that are very poor and they are part of this group. And you have a few that are extremely rich. Okay, cool. Now you understand that. Oh, this group is paying too much. So we need to reduce the premium. Oh, just knock down a few percentage point for of the rich one, and then off you're good. But that's you make it worse. I mean, instinctively, because all the poor people within the group will pay more than they risk, and the really rich will pay a little bit less than they risk. So that's exactly what you don't want if you want to be fair and everybody pay for their own risk. So that is very counterintuitive. So do you want to try to make sure that all the rich people who are in race A should pay the same as all the rich people who are in race B, and all the poor people and so on? So how do you really do the test? I'm not even saying which metrics are you using, but at which level of granularity are you doing the test? And so that is which metric do you use. Okay, now I'm going to play a little bit. So this, I'm going to pick on the lawyers. Any lawyers in the group, I believe. So yeah, cool. So I believe it's Utah who just spelled out a really, really nice proposed legislation. And in our academic group, we talked about it a lot. Because they say an insurance may not, in relation to a contractor policy for life insurance, but not really, there is a P&C and health, but I just unfairly discriminate between individuals same risk category and expectation of life if the rate, dividends, or same thing, or anything else. Okay, cool. On the life insurance side, there is something called automated underwriting or accelerated underwriting. So depending on a slightly different definition, but basically that's saying we want to save everybody's time and effort. You look low risk and so on. We're not going to ask you any fluid, so you don't have to get any blood drawn, any peeing, any EKG or anything. We know enough about you that will give you the price. Could be standard rate or subprime or I mean, could be better or worse, but we know enough about you that we don't need to do that, to do all the tests, and we're going to give you the policy within 2 days. And the other one, we don't know exactly enough about you, and we'll need to send someone to do all those tests about you. All right, cool. Let's say one guy is of one race, he gets really quickly his policy and he pays $100. And another guy who has to wait 3 or 4 weeks but pays less. Who is discriminated against? Hey, this one is unfair, he pays more. Oh, this one is unfair, so this one is unfair, he pays more. Oh, this one is unfair because he had to wait a lot for getting his policy. So everybody can sue, and the lawyer who is able to sue the insurance industry will have a field day. Okay, I'm kidding, but we will have a problem here. And so the Academy of Actuaries, it's a group of actuaries who are just voicing the word of let's say voicing the word of math and saying, here the unintended consequences of your proposed regulation and that type of things, and that is very bad. I don't know what is good, but that is bad. Okay, so now another thought, another discussion here is think about a group of Korean people who are not able to speak well English, or I mean whatever the group is. If you are selling a policy specifically for them, and you're charging $5 more per month, and you are including a 24/7 hotline with someone who speaks their language. Is that discrimination? Yeah, you're asking them to pay more. This is discrimination. But wait a minute, you're giving them a service, and without that, they cannot subscribe, and they don't understand their policy. So, is it discrimination or not? I mean, what do you guys think? Discrimination? Nope. Not discrimination. I don't know, don't ask me. Okay. My personal opinion is that it's definitely defendable, and so I would go with that, but definitely rope in my legal counsel and everything to make sure that it works. But yeah, so. Fair from whom? For whom? That's also quite interesting. In the paper that Faye was mentioning that she wrote with for the Society of Actuaries, you have a lot of Gertrude, who is a nice female who is doing a lot of yoga, who is a good risk, basically. And you had a very aggressive, don't remember the name, guy who was doing a motorcycle without helmet and so on. If you're doing a pool, the person who has more risk will say, "Hey, I'm an individual. It's fair for me to pay the same as she is an individual." And the other one will say, like, "Yeah, but you have more risk, so you coming into my group will make me pay for you. That's unfair." So, group pricing versus individual pricing. The US really love, for the most part, the US really loves individual pricing. You pay for your fair share. Except for TRIA, for flood insurance, for a few for social security, that type of things. So there is always an except for, but because people are doing individual pricing, you have this cherry picking of good risk and bad risk happening. If my model is better than your model, type of things. So that's important. Also, social determinant of health. If you're living right in the middle of the countryside, where everybody is doing some hiking, and you're nudged to do hiking as well, and you're likely to be healthier. But is it? But those social determinants of health, if you look at those maps, they look really close to the race map. Is that good? Is that bad? How you're dealing with that? I mean, the same thing as race map and underinvestment in traffic lights and accidents are also, those are kind of overlapping. This one, there was a big PR issue. A social media influencer who is extremely overweight, but kind of represent the overweight people and say, like, it's unfair. My BMI is through the roof, but body mass index. But the insurance industry is against fat people because they make me pay more. But if I buy an airline ticket, the airline will price the seat based on an individual person, but will charge the luggage based on the weight. They will not charge based on the weight of the combination of individual and why? Because it's your fault to be overweight or not overweight. It becomes tricky. Also, another thing is that um, testing demand resources. All what we are saying, like you do this, and then if you are looking at all the available potential data, and then you're okay, that was one FTE, 2 full-time employees, 3 full-time employee. I'm going to raise my rates on everyone because I need to pay for it, and I'm a for-profit organization. So is that really what you want? Most of the companies, I would say all of the companies, are doing the right thing because they are trying to ethical, because of PR pressure, because of everything. But testing has a huge cost, and a PR cost, and a legal cost, and a regulatory cost. And so they are interested in doing the right thing and they are trying to get a C minus, a passing grade, but not an A plus, but a passing grade in order to get the check mark. But it's so it's really a big burden. And so yeah, cost of compliance, PR, legal risk, and such. Thank you. Any questions for me or me and Malika?
We'll take a few extra minutes, especially since we have less talk, so we can be a little liberal with time. So if there is some questions.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is really helpful, teeing up a bunch of stuff along with Malika's presentation. So I guess my question is, either from the industry side or whatever, how far along are we in terms of this conversation of like cost-benefit analysis, in terms of, it seems like we have some parameters where it's like, it doesn't matter how good race is at predicting something, absolutely off the table. But then on the other side, it's like, oh, if credit score gets you 1% more prediction, then sure, you can use it. So like, do we have some, like, are we in a place in the conversation where we can start managing those trade-offs at all?
So I'm gonna wear exactly my own hat of I'm a consultant. I'm not responsible for any of my clients and so on. Short answer, yes. The companies are exactly doing that trade-off. Also, the amount of effort to do the testing, to do and so on, and all the PR, regulatory risk, and so on. And they land on a certain point. And they are not going to disclose it as much as they're going to, because of trade secret, because of, I'd say, I mean, it's a lot of cooking recipe that you don't want your competitor to know. So, yes, they're going to do the testing. Yes, they're going to do the testing internally and secretly. They will have a policy to do all the testing. And Autorité des marchés financiers in Quebec just spelled out some testing that they need to do. So yes, but not publicly.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think some companies are doing those tests, and it's not foreign to us to try to evaluate whether like a rating factor balances other trade-offs. Like, it's not just that it adds 1% prediction value, right? It has to be objective. It has to be easily obtained. It has to be checked and validated. And often we have this term called reasonable explanation or rational explanation, which we want to be able to convey, right? So it's not out of our realm to be able to think about some of these trade-offs. I would say, like, Philip in DC is also trying to develop a balancing test that would sort of show us what those trade-offs are, and that's kind of similar to those first two steps of that disparate impact framework, but with more numbers around it. So I don't think we're that far away.
Another area that the industry is a little bit more open to talk is on the genetic testing, for example. It was one of the criteria that it's a huge issue on the life insurance side, mainly because if you know your genetic test and you know you're a bad risk, you're going to sign up for 5 insurance, and then your beneficiary will be good at the expense of everybody else's. But it's a hot potato on the PR side because people don't want to necessarily share their information, because some states say you cannot do genetic tests, some states that you can, some states that if you know, it's messy.
So you put two things up there that make me think things may be changing, and that is individual versus group pricing.
Yep.
And we understand that discussion here for insurance. Meanwhile, corporations have been trying, and there's pushback on price optimization.
Yep.
Which is when corporations try and charge you more because they think you can pay more and you're willing to pay.
Yes.
Seems like this may be shifting back and forth then between, or at least we've got two different areas that we may have to reconcile.
Mm-hmm.
Between individual pricing based on ability or susceptibility to pay versus price based upon characteristics that could otherwise be problematic in a different dimension.
Yes.
Okay.
That was easy.
I mean, many states have now taken to outlawing or looking to outlaw price optimization.
Correct.
In commercial transactions.
Yes. Is that right? I'd say in Europe it's allowed. When you buy your airline ticket, it's allowed. Is that fair? Is that not fair? That's, for me, that would be, I would defer to the society and its proxy, regulators, and an elected official.
I have some comments on that. So I think that has something to do with the insurance literacy and also how much information that the consumers have and have access to. I mean, presumably, if it's a pure transparent market and the insurers have the full information, they can easily shop around. I think that's probably not a problem. But the problem is that lots of the customers who don't shop around, who stay there, not because they value your service or they are rich people, just because their lack of insurance literacy. They don't shop around. They don't, so if you look at the data set, it could be like very old people who don't have like lots of digital access, or it's not necessarily the rich people who don't shop around. So I think that's really where the problem is. The problem is that people who are disadvantaged by price optimization associated with some protected attributes or low socioeconomic groups, and that's actually part of the proxy discrimination impact. I think that's the main reason behind why it should be banned for this reason.
For insurance.
Yeah, for insurance.
How about for other things, like shopping at the grocery store?
At the grocery store.
Well, that's the information is fully transparent. If that's fully transparent, and I guess I think that's something we can explore further. I think that's not fully equivalent.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about proxies. So I think a lot of people, when they use the word proxy, they just mean sort of very correlated. But if we're talking technically about statistical proxy, we're talking about a variable that steals its signal through its correlation to another variable.
Yep.
If we say that something is a statistical proxy for race, aren't we implicitly saying that race itself is a variable that differentiates risk? And, or to phrase it another way, if race is not a variable that differentiates risk, can anything actually be a statistical proxy of it?
Ooh, that's like a...
I would argue yes, because if you think in terms of the chains of effects, race could actually be proxying for another variable to which your variable through race can pick up its effect, right? So in a binary situation where it's just race versus your variable, in theory, if you believe race fundamentally has no effect, then your variable will get everything. But the moment there's a third variable, you have to ask yourself, what are the relations among the three? And it is possible then for that proxy to happen.
That makes sense.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think what came to mind for me was just the other day I think, in another session, and someone mentioned, with credit score, there are different claiming behaviors by credit score. It's not necessarily about the number of accidents that are happening or the severity of the accidents. So it's giving us some information for like a variable that we don't know, which may also be correlated with race. And so there's just so many different sort of moving pieces there that we can't just like dismiss something as a proxy or not a proxy. It's like we need to find that other thing too to understand and like keep kind of searching for what are sort of the drivers of risk or cost that we need to be estimating for.
Let me ask you a question then.
Sure, please.
We started the first question was, okay, well, how do we, are we somewhere in a conversation where we can actually talk about, well, here's where risk needs, what factors risk we pull across risk versus differential. And you've both told me that internally companies seem to be doing that and are happy with it. I don't get the feeling that publicly we have a real consensus on what you can pull across or not. So how are companies calibrating their internal checks? And what's dictating how a company decides, okay, this is a reasonable thing that we're going to do, even if we're not then going to tell everybody about it?
I wouldn't exactly say what you said. I would say that there are companies that are starting to experiment with these fairness tests to find out what they can find out. And they may not be happy with it. I don't know. I truly don't know what the outcomes are of those tests within each individual company. But it's not that they're satisfied or unsatisfied with the outcomes. It's that they're also trying to figure out, does this work in our context, or does this work? And do we think this is okay, or like, where should that threshold be? Do we have an opinion that we can potentially advocate for with the regulators when it comes up to it? So it's not that they're doing the test and they're like, this factor is fine to use, we're going to use it. But I think they're starting to experiment with how can we have an opinion, an informed opinion about this. And if we're going in this direction of having to prove that it's fair on the basis of race or other protected classes, where would we stand if we were to do this?
Yeah,
the thing that frustrates me about all of this is, we've got more data in the world than we know what to do with these days. But every time an insurance company comes up with something that doesn't have a rational explanation for it, it seems like it's somehow correlated with race. I mean, there've got to be factors out there that they could use if they looked for them. I would hope there would be more effort to do that.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is similar to Malika. Like many companies are saying, okay, now we have a blueprint. We need to test with race. Okay, this model, which metric would be good? I think this metric is good. Okay, what does that look like? Okay, can we do this refinement? Oh, how does that look like? Okay, is that justified? Does that make sense? Oh, but we have all those models. Okay, that's good enough for this model. Let's take a look at that model. And in order to get it to a defendable status, but I mean, they are also checking cybersecurity, and they are also checking and so as they do something with race. They do that, and then they they want to have a C plus or C minus rating, and not necessarily an A plus.
One last one of it.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of refining this, I feel like the way that it goes is it's like there's some factor that gives you an edge over your competitor. You can charge slightly lower rates, get that market share or whatever. But I think talking like what Giles was saying in terms of, yes, the insurance companies are doing this internally, but it's almost as if I think on a public level, if somebody were to just say like, look, including credit score means that I'm able to save you 25 cents and you're going to pay 25 cents more, I think as a society we'd be like, just don't bother. Like it's just causing us too much problems. People are concerned about inequality because of this. Like we'll just eat the quarter. That's fine. Whereas if you're like, you know what, credit score for some reason it's going to, you know, really raise rates, you know, by $100 for different folks, then it's like, oh, there's something there. Maybe we should figure that out. Like it seems like for some of these there is kind of that trade-off where society would say like, just don't sweat it. Like just ignore it. We'll eat the cost. That's fine. And some other ones where it's like, oh, we don't know why it works, but it does work. Maybe do that thing and we'll figure it out. Like, is that, like, are we on that level of a conversation?
I would say yes in the rate filing process, somehow, somewhat. But the rate filing process, the goal is to get it approved, not necessarily to get the conversation moving forward as much as it could be, and not every. I mean, there is no rate filing on the life side. I mean, not exactly. But yeah.
Can we thank both of our